Welcome to the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health's monthly magazine, Meeting of the Minds. I'm Karen Zarcidias. In this month's Mental Health Minute, surfing the net may combat loneliness, not just in young people, but also in adults. A study from the University of Alabama has shown adults over the age of 50 who use the internet for social purposes are less likely to be depressed. Researchers found internet-savvy adults are going online to keep in touch with family and friends and to make better decisions on issues like health, politics, and travel. A related study from the University of California also found that the internet use helped boost brain function and stimulate nerve cell activity. These findings suggest that internet use has an overall positive effect on lowering the rates of depression. Hope, Wellness, and Recovery is our department's motto. With more about what DMH is up to, here's a message from our director, Dr. Marvin Southard.
Today I'd like to talk to you about the integration of physical health care and mental health care. I think anyone who has had a loved one who suffers from a chronic health condition or a long-term disability related to health knows the complications that result from trying to coordinate the physical health care, all of the specialty doctors, all of those different prescriptions. I know that when my sister coordinated the health care for my mother when she was ill, all of that became her full-time job. Imagine trying to do that while also suffering from a chronic mental illness. It becomes overwhelming. To deal with this situation, we're trying to create a structure that we're calling a health neighborhood. Bring together primary care, mental health care, and even substance abuse treatment if it were needed, together in a coordinated effort that is supported by all of a community's resources, because we know that social support does a better job in producing positive health outcomes sometimes than treatment does. The bottom line, we know we will have better health if we have communities working together to produce better health.
Thank you, Dr. Southard. We like to share stories and tips on wellness and recovery on this show. With more about this in our Walk the Talk segment, here's Kathleen Pichet.
My guest today is Claire Merrill. Claire heard and saw ghosts for many years before seeking professional help. After a bad breakup with her boyfriend in college, Claire sought help and was prescribed an antidepressant, which only increased the amount of voices she heard. Eventually, Claire was placed on a low-grade antipsychotic medication and received cognitive behavioral therapy and improved. She credits a large part of her recovery to decreasing the isolation she found herself in. She found her way to a welcoming community at the San Fernando Valley Community Mental Health Center, Inc., in the Client Run Center. Claire currently teaches a poetry group in Tai Chi at the CRC in Van Nuys. Hi, Claire. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
What was the hardest part for you? What was the bottom?
When I really hit bottom was when I finally graduated from college. I had a great achievement. But I fell into a horrible, horrible depression with voices talking to me all the time, and they weren't the same voices that helped me get through college. They were an ex-boyfriend in my head, both his good side and his bad side, both having an argument. So after 6 weeks of working a menial job and just barely getting by, I went to my family care practitioner, and they said, well, I think you need to see a psychiatrist. But it was 6 weeks. So during that 6 weeks, they gave me Prozac, and the voices became happy and celebratory. They were having a party in my head, and I felt like morning, noon, or night, there was always somebody talking in my head. And one of them was saying, well, you know, maybe you should commit suicide. So this was really the first step up from the depression, but the voices were there haunting me.
And what were you doing? Were you staying in your apartment?
I was staying in my apartment, and I worked as a counter person. I didn't have any self-esteem, and the voices were just ordering me about. What I realized, what got me out of this, is the empowerment the doctors gave me.
At that point, did you get a diagnosis?
After I saw my primary care, 6 weeks later, I met my first psychiatrist. Very nice man, made good friends with me before he diagnosed me, but he didn't actually diagnose me as schizophrenic. He actually just asked me a question. How would you like to live your life without those voices? And my reaction was, doesn't everybody have voices? And his reaction to that was, no, people don't live that complicated a life. And then he told me, all those voices are you.
So then you found the Client Run Center.
Yes. When I first found out about it, I was like, of course, this makes total sense. We should have these reintegration classes. Then I'm sitting there, and the first thing they ask you is to look into your prejudices. Oh, I thought I didn't have any. It took me about one day to realize that everybody has prejudices. And if you can accept your own prejudices and forgive yourself, that's the beginning to the road to recovery.
And the community is set up there to really welcome you and encourage you to grow.
You meet at the center, everybody seems perfectly normal. Nobody seems like they have issues because we're all just helping each other, talking with each other. And it gives you an opportunity to, tell people your stories, listen to other people's stories.
Yeah, which is inspirational too.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say was the most important thing for you in recovering?
The most important was the cognitive-based therapy. I worked with a therapist for 3 years to change all my negative thoughts, which were the mean voices. I was not taking claim to those mean voices. So I had to take responsibility for them and then change those voices into positive thinking.
Now, there's something called the Wellness Recovery Action Plan that you teach, and it's what we all know as WRAP.
Yeah.
Tell us about your WRAP plan.
I have done it 37 times. I've been through the book. I love to start at the beginning of the book like I've never done it before and do it again. The first chapter, they ask you who you are. And then they ask you, well, what's your daily schedule like? And what kind of things do you use to stay healthy? What are your tricks? Mm-hmm. And then it starts talking about, okay, if you use all those tools and then something happens to you where you feel uncomfortable, maybe you've been triggered. So then instead of just a trigger might make you start screaming at your spouse, or you think to yourself, I don't need to scream. I have choices here. I can have an action plan that I could break the dish, I could throw the dish, I could set the dish down very quietly, and I could talk very quietly.
It allows you to have an awareness about what's happening with you and then make a better decision.
I'm always cautious because the WRAP plans go from the beginning, very minor things like triggers, into signs where you're really slipping. So you're taking control of your life when you're well. It even has a chapter at the very end called Post-Crisis Plan, and that's the plan where you dream of what you're going to be like when you're well again. And that's so important when you are feeling depressed and sad to think, well, maybe someday I will be able to go to the beach again. Maybe someday I'll go to that restaurant.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. It's important that people hear your story, and you are walking the talk.
Yes, thank you.
Back to Karen.
Thank you, Kathleen. And that's the show for this month's edition of Meeting of the Minds. To learn more about the Department of Mental Health and for more information about DMH's programs and resources, you can always visit the website anytime at dmh.lacounty.gov. You can also follow us on our Facebook page and watch our Profiles of Hope videos and PSAs on YouTube. Just search for the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, or LACDMH. And if you or someone you know is in need of help, you can call our 24/7 access line at 1-800-854-7771. That's 1-800-854-7771. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.